Alright, I'm Maddie.
I'm Chris.
And we did the circular saw, or researched the circular saw. The first circular saw was created in 1813 by a woman named Maddy. And how she came about this was she was watching two men using a pit saw. And she realized that half of the movement that they were using was wasted. So she realized that putting the saw in a circle would help the movement and not waste any of that. It wasn't until 1920 though that Skillsaw created the first portable circular saw. And even today, when you go, people refer to a circular saw as a skill saw, just like you would refer a tissue to Kleenex. There are many variations of the circular saw. It comes in wall-mounted, table-mounted, portable, battery, corded, big and small. The most common one is a 7.5-inch blade.
Portable saw.
Yes.
All right, these are the four main kinds, as Maddy mentioned, is the table saw, the miter saw, the worm drive, and the inline. We're focusing on the portable ones, which would be the worm drive and inline versions. There's a lot of different variations of each model. The main thing is what they're used to cut and how they work. The worm drive is named for the way the motor is configured on the blade or on the saw. It runs parallel with the saw and uses a gear to change the direction of motion and spin the blade. The inline saw runs perpendicular, has a motor that runs perpendicular with the blade. And usually they're a lot lighter, they're smaller, smaller motors, and used for cutting like softer materials such as just common wood, plywood, 2x4s and stuff like that. Worm drive saws would be used to cut like granite, concrete, metal, and for that reason they're often used by professionals and people who have a little bit more experience with the circular saw.
And the interesting thing about this is the worm drive saw was the original portable circular saw, and Porter Cable, to get around Skillsaw's patents, designed this one, the inline saw. The user interface is a lot different on the circular saw than it is on any other power tool because there's lots of features all over the circular saw, adjustments, and extra safety buttons. The two main areas that the user comes in contact though are the handle, the main handle, and the secondary handle. The main handle has to be ergonomically designed and comfortable because the user's going to be holding it and helping you cut. The second handle is the user helps to stabilize the cut and have more control. The trigger has to be placed so they can hold both handles and pull the trigger, and even a safety on some of the models you saw. There's either safety or a trigger, depending on high or low end. Novice lovers, me and Chris noticed that in the consumer reports that they like the rubber coated knobs, and instead of just using a normal screwable to unscrew, put into place, and screw back in place to lock, it was an easy...
A quick release. A lot like a bike wheel. Like on nice bikes, the tire can be quickly released on and off. So they have a quick release for the angle adjustment, depth, and bevel. Then these are some of the competitors, different companies that make circular saws. Obviously, most power tool companies make the majority of the common tools, but Milwaukee and DeWalt have the highest end as far as circular saws that are carried in the majority of stores. They range from up to $500 and sometimes a little bit more. And then Ryobi and Rigid are some of the lower end. We found Ryobi saws that started around $50. So that's generally the range. There are a few that we found. There was a company called Festool that makes a really advanced saw upwards of $500 or more, and it has a lot of advanced features, but they're less common and usually not found in most stores. Usually the quality of the saw would be based on the materials that it's made of and how comfortable it is and that kind of thing. The higher end saws are made of more durable materials that are lighter weight, such as magnesium blade shields and then composite plastic bases, which these are the shields right here, and then the base right here would be composite plastic. The lower ends still are durable, but they use heavier materials such as steel, and that makes them a little bit harder to use.
You're approaching 6 minutes.
Okay.
Some of the technology and features on today's circular saws include a laser. The laser helps the user guide the cut and keeping it straight. However, in the consumer reports, they really didn't find use for it and it was important. They are adding an LED light though. For example, if you're working on site in a basement and you're casting shadow on where you're cutting, you can turn on the light and see where you're cutting. They're also incorporating safety features using technology because, as you can see, 60,000 injuries a year happen because of circular saws.
It's one accident every 9 minutes, I think, was the statistic. And there's actually a company called Stop Saw that has come up with a really advanced braking system for their saws. Essentially, it sends an electrical impulse through the blade of the saw, and as soon as the human flesh or any part of your body comes in contact with the blade, within 5 milliseconds, it senses the electrical change in voltage that your body absorbs from that pulse that it sends out, and it instantly stops the saw. And they actually had videos online where someone stuck their hand at the saw and touched the blade, and within that 5 milliseconds, it was stopped, and you only get this little scrape on your finger. No damage.
And another aspect of the circular saw is the blade, which just depending on the material you want to cut, comes in different.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different kinds of blades. I'm trying to wrap up real quick. Basically, they're used for cutting all the different materials, and blades are probably the most advanced technology on the saw. The saw is basically, or it's pretty basic, but we found blades that you could buy for cutting really hard materials that actually cost more than the starting price of some of the low-end saws.